The galaxy burned. It was not a fire that could be doused with water, nor a flame that could be smothered by a single hand. Entire star systems had been reduced to ash, their planets hollowed, their moons shattered into orbiting shards of rock and metal. For a century, the Xari Dominion and the Valtheran Ascendancy had waged a war that had no beginning and no end, a war built on revenge, fear, and the insatiable hunger for control. Battles flared across the void like a million supernovae, leaving nothing alive in their wake. Neutral sectors were ghost towns. Refugee fleets drifted in silence, their crews gaunt, hopeless, and forgotten. Mercenaries, once trusted as a buffer between warring empires, had long been slaughtered or co-opted. Diplomatic channels were flooded with lies, betrayals, and unheeded warnings. The galaxy had grown numb to the violence, believing it could not be stopped. And then humanity arrived. At first, it was barely noticeable. Reports trickled in from the outskirts of explored space, small, nimble ships appearing where they shouldn't. The new species called themselves humans. They were pale-skinned bipeds, few in number, wielding technology that seemed primitive at first glance. Yet their actions were bold, almost reckless, and inexplicably precise. In places where battles had raged for decades, they moved with speed and coordination no one thought possible. The first whisper spread like wildfire: a human ship had destroyed a Valtheran raiding group without a single casualty on the colony it defended. The next report: an entire Xari patrol had vanished after encountering human vessels in the asteroid belts near Karath Prime. At first, both empires dismissed these stories. They assumed luck, coincidence, or exaggeration. But as more fleets were defeated, fleets that had been invincible for generations, fear began to spread. Captain Michael Carver leaned over the holographic display on the bridge of the USV Washington, Earth's first interstellar dreadnought, and studied the red blips converging on Vesta Prime, a small colony on the fringe of neutral space. He had fought simulations, studied tactics, and trained for decades. But nothing had prepared him for this: the knowledge that humanity's first direct intervention in the war could either save millions or ignite the galaxy's wrath. "Sir," Commander Renee Vasquez, his XO, said, her voice steady but tinged with urgency, "the Valtheran raiding fleet is moving faster than our estimates. If they reach the colony, it's over. The civilians won't survive." Carver's jaw tightened. Humanity had observed the Galactic War for decades, quietly analyzing the fighting styles of every major power, learning patterns, weaknesses, and strategies. Earth had remained neutral, hidden behind the veil of distance, until the Valtheran had dared strike a Terran convoy last year, unprovoked, ruthless, and indiscriminate. That had been the tipping point. "No warnings," Carver said finally, voice low but firm. "We engage immediately. Helm, plot an intercept course. Weapons hot." The Washington surged forward like a living predator, its engines burning with the soft blue light of controlled fusion. Around Carver, the crew moved with practiced precision. Lights flickered as consoles activated, weapons systems hummed to life, and the bridge vibrated with anticipation. This was humanity's first real taste of the galactic battlefield, and it would leave a mark. As they jumped into the sector, the scale of the war became terrifyingly clear. Dozens of enemy ships sprawled across the void like a nest of predatory insects. Their armor glinted under distant starlight, their weapons poised to annihilate anything in their path. The colony below, Vesta Prime, was barely defensible: mining stations and civilian habitats scattered across the surface, thinly shielded and completely unprepared for the firestorm descending from orbit. Carver took a deep breath, feeling the weight of command settle on his shoulders. "Focus on the lead cruiser," he said. "Missiles ready. Plasma cannons on standby." Vasquez nodded. "They're adjusting formation. Almost anticipating our moves." "Good," Carver replied, a faint edge of satisfaction in his tone. "Let them think they're clever." The first salvo struck like lightning. Plasma torpedoes surged through the void, striking the Valtheran lead cruiser's shields with an explosion that illuminated the darkness for kilometers. The ship quivered under the impact, its protective energy field flickering like a candle in the wind. Boarding drones launched from the Washington, swarming toward the cruiser in perfect coordination. Each drone moved like an extension of Carver's own mind, exploiting gaps in the enemy hull with lethal precision. "Drones deployed," Vasquez reported. Hull breaches detected. Core destabilizing. Carver's hands moved over the controls with the rhythm of instinct and strategy combined. The humans' advantage lay not only in their advanced technology, but in their adaptability. Where the Valtheran relied on overwhelming numbers and brute strength, humanity relied on coordination, anticipation, and ingenuity. They fought like a single organism, every ship and fighter acting as if connected by a singular consciousness. Explosion after explosion rocked the enemy formation, shaking loose escorts, scattering smaller craft, and sending debris tumbling across the void. The Valtheran tried to respond, firing volleys of plasma that missed their mark with almost impossible frequency. Their tactics, honed for a century, were insufficient against this new, unpredictable opponent. Carver's communicator buzzed. "Incoming fleet," reported the tactical officer. "Reinforcements from Earth, 10 ships closing on Vector 739. Vasquez's eyes widened. "Captain, they're joining us." Carver's lips curved into a thin smile. "Good. Let them see how humans fight together." The combined human fleet descended on the enemy like a storm. Fast, precise, merciless. Ships darted between explosions, firing coordinated salvos and weaving around debris, leaving destruction in their wake. The Valtheran fleet faltered, confusion rippling through their ranks. Orders were shouted, strategies attempted, but nothing worked. The humans adapted instantly, turning defense into offense, chaos into opportunity. Within minutes, the lead cruiser erupted in a blinding explosion, fragments scattering across the sector. The remaining enemy ships scrambled to retreat, but the humans' momentum was relentless. Boarding drones and assault fighters disabled ship after ship, turning the tide of the battle in mere moments. On the surface of Vesta Prime, the colonists watched from the shadows as the alien warships fell apart above them. Many had lost everything: homes, supplies, family, yet a new feeling surged among them: hope. Humanity had intervened. Humanity had struck back. And humanity had shown that even in a war no one could stop, there was a force that could alter the outcome. "Status report," Carver demanded. "Colony secure," Vasquez replied. "Minimal civilian casualties. Enemy fleet decimated. Remaining ships are retreating toward the Agnari Rift." Carver exhaled slowly, letting the tension slip from his shoulders. "Good. But this is only the beginning. The galaxy thinks this is a single engagement. It's not. Humanity just announced its presence. And in the dark expanse of space, where wars had raged unchecked for centuries, a new chapter had begun. Humans were no longer observers. They were participants. They were disruptors. They were a force that could not be predicted, and could not be stopped. Somewhere, deep within the command centers of the Xari and Valtheran, a realization spread like wildfire. Across fleets and colonies, in strategy rooms and council chambers, the same terrifying thought emerged: humanity was here. And the game had changed forever. The aftermath of Vesta Prime's rescue rippled across the galaxy like a shockwave. News of humanity's sudden, decisive intervention had traveled faster than any fleet could pursue. The Xari Dominion and Valtheran Ascendancy, long accustomed to seeing civilizations crumble under their might, now faced a species that refused to cower, a species that struck back with devastating precision. Captain Michael Carver stood on the bridge of the USV Washington, staring at the holodisplay that shimmered above the console. Dozens of red icons, the Xari patrol fleet, were converging near the neutral system of Terran 7. Unlike the attack on Vesta Prime, this engagement was no longer reactive, it was an opportunity. A chance to demonstrate to the galaxy that humans were not just interlopers, but a force capable of changing the course of history. Commander Renee Vasquez leaned over the tactical panel, her fingers flying across the controls. "Captain, their formation is tight. They're expecting a conventional approach, heavy broadside, frontal engagement. But our drones and fighters, they're ready to bypass it entirely." Carver's eyes narrowed. "Good. We're not playing by their rules. Everyone, remember, we hit fast, we hit hard, and we hit smart. No hesitation. No mercy." The human fleet surged forward, a coordinated strike of sleek warships and nimble fighters. Each vessel moved as if connected by a single will, anticipating the others' maneuvers before they were executed. The Xari, confident in centuries of dominance, were unprepared for such tactics. The first salvo erupted like lightning. Plasma beams arced across the void, striking the Xari lead cruiser and tearing open gashes in its reinforced hull. The ship quaked under the assault, its shields flaring in an attempt to absorb the damage. But the humans had calculated every weakness, every structural vulnerability. Boarding drones deployed, Vasquez reported, her voice calm but edged with anticipation. Impact in 60 seconds. The drones swarmed like a metallic swarm of locusts, piercing the cruiser's defenses, infiltrating corridors, and targeting critical systems. Explosions rocked the ship from the inside out, shaking loose smaller escort vessels and sending debris tumbling across the sector. Carver's gaze never wavered from the display. Focus on the command cruiser. Everything else is secondary. Take out their leadership and the rest will fall apart. The Xari fleet attempted to respond. Missile volleys streaked through space, interceptors swarmed to engage human fighters, and their dreadnoughts shifted formation with machine-like precision. But humanity's adaptability was unmatched. Each human ship moved unpredictably, a blend of instinct and strategy that defied the Dominion's calculations. Suddenly, the comm panel lit up. Captain. Multiple signatures emerging from Terran 7 jump point. Reinforcements, Earth Fleet. Vasquez's eyes widened. They're here. Carver allowed himself a small, grim smile. Perfect timing. Prepare full assault vector. The humans struck again, now bolstered by reinforcements. Fighter squadrons cut between enemy ships, weaving through plasma fire with impossible agility. Torpedo spreads detonated against shields, fragmenting the Xari's formation. Boarding teams continued to infiltrate capital ships, setting time charges that crippled engines and disabled weapon arrays. The battle became a symphony of destruction. Explosions illuminated the void like distant supernovae. Fire and debris cascaded through the darkness. The humans, though vastly outnumbered, seemed to anticipate every enemy maneuver, countering strikes before the Xari commanders could even react. Vasquez's voice broke the tense silence. Captain, the lead dreadnought is attempting a warp escape. Carver's jaw tightened. Not on my watch. Full power to plasma cannons. Fighters, intercept and prevent any jump. We finish this fight here and now. The dreadnought shuddered under the onslaught. Plasma beams struck with pinpoint accuracy, tearing through its hull. Boarding drones breached its core, detonating internal sections and triggering chain reactions that threatened to tear the ship apart from within. The once mighty vessel, feared across multiple systems, now quaked like a wounded beast. Dreadnought destroyed, Vasquez confirmed. Relief was tempered with the adrenaline of battle. Remaining fleet is scattering. Carver exhaled slowly, letting the tension fade just enough to observe the aftermath. Good. But this isn't about one victory. This is about changing the perception of what humans can do. The galaxy needs to know we're here, and we're not playing by anyone's rules. The human fleet continued to press forward. Smaller Xari and Valtheran ships, previously emboldened by numbers, now hesitated, confusion rippling through their formations. Orders were shouted, strategies improvised, but nothing countered humanity's unpredictability. Each strike, each maneuver, each coordinated assault pushed the enemy back further, deeper into disarray. On the ground of Terran 7, neutral colonists and refugees watched the space above with awe. Explosions lit the sky, the shimmer of distant plasma cutting through the darkness. For the first time in decades, hope had arrived in the form of pale-skinned humans whose technology and tactics defied expectation. Vasquez glanced at Carver. They're retreating across multiple vectors. The remaining forces, scattered, broken, and leaderless. Carver's gaze drifted to the stars, to the endless stretch of darkness beyond. This is only the beginning. The Dominion and Ascendancy will recover. They always do. But now, humanity has made its presence undeniable. They will respect us, or they will face annihilation. The holo display shifted, showing fleeing enemy ships streaking toward distant jump points. Carver's mind raced ahead, already plotting the next engagement. Earth had entered the war late, but they had done so with a calculated precision that ensured the galaxy would remember their arrival. For the first time in a century, the war was no longer one-sided. Humanity was not just defending colonies, they were redefining the battlefield, rewriting the rules, and forcing even the oldest powers to reconsider their strategies. In the quiet moments between attacks, Carver allowed himself a rare reflection. He remembered the countless simulations, the training sessions, the debates about whether Earth should intervene at all. Now, all of that had crystallized into one undeniable truth: humans were not merely participants in this galactic war. They were the variable no one could calculate, the force that could tip the scales. Vasquez's voice broke his reverie. "Captain, the fleet is holding formation. Colony secure. No casualties on our side." Carver nodded, a sense of grim satisfaction settling in his chest. "Excellent. Prepare the fleet for patrol in this sector. Send reports to Earth Command. Let the galaxy see what humanity can do." And as the human ships drifted past the remnants of destroyed Xari vessels, leaving a trail of light in the darkness, the message was clear: the war that no one could stop had met its challenger. The humans had arrived, and they were not to be ignored. Somewhere, across the fractured command centers of the Dominion and Ascendancy, alarm bells rang, communication scrambled, and the same thought struck every admiral, officer, and soldier. The humans are here. And the game has changed forever. The war had raged for over a century, consuming entire civilizations and leaving star systems in ruin. The Xari Dominion and Valtheran Ascendancy had believed themselves invincible, their fleets unmatched, their tactics perfected over generations. But now, for the first time, a new force moved through the galaxy, rewriting the rules of engagement. Humanity had arrived, and they were unstoppable. Captain Michael Carver stood on the bridge of the USV Washington, his hands resting lightly on the control console, eyes scanning the holodisplay that mapped the enemy's massive fleet near the Zerine Expanse. Hundreds of ships converged in a chaotic mass: Xari dreadnoughts, Valtheran supercarriers, and squadrons of agile interceptors, all prepared to crush any opposition. Yet Carver knew something they did not: humans did not fight like anyone else. "Captain," Commander Renee Vasquez said, her voice tight with anticipation, "the Ascendancy and Dominion forces are consolidating. They're expecting a frontal assault, but our ships are positioned to flank from multiple vectors. If we strike now..." Carver nodded. "We strike now. Signal all squadrons, attack pattern Delta 9. No mercy. No hesitation. The moment they see us, the game changes, and we take it to them." The human fleet surged forward, lights flaring across the void like a storm of fire. The Xari and Valtheran commanders barked orders in unison, but centuries of conventional warfare were useless against tactics they could not anticipate. Human ships darted between capital vessels, weaving through defensive fire, launching torpedoes and plasma blasts with deadly precision. Boarding drones struck at weak points, infiltrating hulls and detonating explosive charges that crippled engines and weapons arrays alike. On the bridge of the Washington, Carver's fingers moved across the controls with a rhythm born of instinct and discipline. "Target their flagship," he ordered. "Everything else falls after they do. Concentrate fire. Keep fighters on intercept. Let's make history." The flagship, a colossal Xari dreadnought, bristled with weapon arrays and shield generators that had never failed in combat. It unleashed volleys of plasma fire, tearing apart escort ships and scorching the vacuum with their energy. But humanity's assault was relentless. Torpedo barrages breached shields, boarding drones infiltrated corridors, and precision strikes disabled critical systems in seconds. The dreadnought rocked under the impact of the final human assault. Fires ignited within its core, explosions rippled through the hull, and for the first time, the mighty ship trembled in defeat. Its shields collapsed, its weapons went dark, and the vessel listed, helpless. "Dreadnought is down," Vasquez reported, barely containing the exhilaration in her voice. "Remaining enemy ships are scattering." Carver allowed himself a rare smile. "Good. But the war isn't over yet. This is a turning point, yes, but they'll regroup. We need to make sure they remember who's coming." As the human fleet pressed forward, a Valtheran supercarrier emerged from a nearby warp point, massive and foreboding. Its weapons powered up, threatening to cut the human fleet in half. Carver's heart tightened. Even with humans' advanced ships and tactics, the carrier's sheer size and firepower could inflict catastrophic damage. "Divert all power to forward cannons and shields," Carver commanded. "Fighter squadrons, intercept and distract. Boarding teams, move to breach the carrier immediately." The space around the supercarrier erupted in chaos. Fighters darted in arcs, weaving through enemy fire, launching missiles and deploying electronic countermeasures. The humans struck with surgical precision, targeting engines, weapons systems, and critical subsystems. Boarding drones infiltrated the hull, detonating charges that ripped through the massive ship from within. Explosion after explosion lit the void, each detonation throwing shards of metal across the battlefield. The supercarrier trembled, sparks and fire spilling from breaches in its hull. Slowly, methodically, the humans dismantled the seemingly invincible warship. "Carrier destroyed," Vasquez confirmed, her voice steady but edged with triumph. "The fleets, they're breaking. Scattered." Carver exhaled, letting the tension ease for the first time in hours. The galaxy had witnessed the impossible, human ships defeating fleets that had terrorized civilizations for generations. And yet, the war had not ended. The remnants of the Xari and Valtheran forces fled into the darkness, retreating to regroup and lick their wounds. On Terran 7, neutral colonists and refugees looked up at the void, awestruck. The humans' victory was more than a display of power, it was proof that hope could exist even in a galaxy long resigned to despair. Children stared at the flickering light of human ships moving past distant stars, unaware of the centuries of destruction humanity had just faced, but aware, instinctively, that the future now belonged to those willing to fight. Vasquez's voice broke the quiet on the bridge. "Captain, the fleets are holding formation. Colony secure. Minimal casualties on our side. Enemy forces are in full retreat." Carver nodded, his gaze sweeping the stars. "Excellent. Signal all squadrons to maintain patrol. Let the galaxy see what humanity can do. The message must be clear: we are here, and no one will underestimate us again." The holodisplay showed the scattered enemy ships retreating to distant warp points. For the first time, centuries of war appeared vulnerable. Human ships moved in perfect coordination, their speed and precision leaving trails of light across the darkness. Humanity had arrived late, but they had arrived prepared, calculated, lethal, and unyielding. Deep within the command centers of the Dominion and Ascendancy, alarm bells rang. Orders were shouted, reports were passed along, and fear took root where arrogance had once dominated. For the first time, the galaxy realized that humans were not just participants, they were a new paradigm, a force that could not be ignored or contained. Carver returned to his captain's chair, watching the remnants of the battle drift into the void. Vasquez stood beside him, her expression a mixture of pride and reflection. "Do you think Earth is ready for this?" she asked quietly. Carver's eyes swept across the stars, lingering on each distant sun, each scarred planet. "We'll learn," he said. "We always do. And whatever comes next, we'll face it together." The galaxy had been a battlefield for centuries, scarred by endless fire and death. Entire civilizations had been forgotten in the process. But now, a new order was forming. The war that no one could stop had been altered by humanity's intervention. A species once considered insignificant had become the catalyst for change. Where despair had reigned, hope now emerged. Where defeat had been inevitable, victory became a possibility. Humanity's arrival had shifted the balance, rewriting the rules of engagement and forcing even the oldest powers to reckon with a force they could not anticipate. And in the cold, silent void of space, one undeniable truth became clear. Humans had arrived. And the game had changed forever.